Alcoholics Anonymous is the fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and help with each other that they may solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, and neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And can I have another friend read how it works for us?
I'll read how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power, that one is God, and you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted that we were powerless over alcohol.
I can't hear you. Can you guys hear her?
No,
I'm sorry. I think I accidentally muted. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. We humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except to do so when to do so would injure them or others. 10. We continued to take a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and
would if he were sought.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we have a daily reflections. Can I get a friend to read today's daily reflections?
Linda, I'll read it.
Hi, Linda. Thank you.
Hi, honey. You're so welcome. Serving my brothers. Oh, the members talk to the newcomers not in a spirit of power, but in a spirit of humility and weakness. As the days passed in AA, I asked God to guide my thoughts and my words, that I speak in the labor of continuous participation in the fellowship. I have numerous opportunities to speak, so I frequently ask God to help me watch over my thoughts and my words, that they may be the true and proper reflection of our program, to focus my aspirations once again, to seek His guidance, to help me be truly kind and loving, helpful and healing, yet always filled with humility, free from any trace of ignorance. Today I may very well have to deal with disagreeable attitudes or utterance, the typical shock and train attitude of still suffering alcoholic. If this should happen, I will take a moment to center myself in God, so that I will be able to respond from a perspective of composure, strength, and stability. That would thank you.
Thank you so much, for Linda. And if I do this, can you guys see step one? Did it toggle over to step one?
No.
No? Darn, I tried. Okay. All right. I did try. I thought if I read, ooh, let me try that. So it didn't do that. So it's okay. I have it over here. I just thought it would be
Oh,
cool.
good. You're back out.
I don't know. I was trying to do a shortcut, but that didn't work. Now can you see it?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. We're on step one in the 12 and 12 today. I'm taking the meeting for Shelley since she's on vacation, and nothing's better than vacation. I'm going to start reading, and then I'll pass it along. Step one: we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. No other kind of bankruptcy is like this one. Alcohol, now become the rapacious creditor, bleeds us of all self-sufficiency and all will to resist its demands. Once this dark fact is accepted, our bankruptcy is going human. Once this dark fact is accepted, our bankruptcy as going human concerns is complete. Okay, but upon entering AA, we soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps towards liberation and strength. Our admissions of personal powerlessness finally turn out to be the firm bedrock upon which happy and purposefully lives may be built. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accepted his devastating weakness and all its consequences. Until he so humbles himself, his sobriety, if any, will be precarious. Of real happiness he will find none at all. Proved beyond a doubt by an immense experience, this is one of the facts of AA life. The principle that we shall find no enduring strength until we first admit complete defeat is the main taproot from which our whole society has sprung and flowered. When first challenged to admit defeat, most of us revolted. We had approached AA expecting to be taught self-confidence. Then we had been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence was no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. Our sponsors declared that we were the victims of a mental obsession so subtly powerful that no amount of human willpower could break it. There was, they said, no such thing as the personal conquest of this compulsion by unaided will. Relentlessly deepening our dilemma, our sponsors pointed out their increasingly sensitivity to alcohol and allergy, they called it. The tyrant alcohol wielded a double-edged sword over us. First, we were smitten by an insane urge to that condemned us to go on drinking, and then by an allergy of the body that ensured we would ultimately destroy ourselves in the process. Few indeed were those who, so assailed, had ever won through in single-handed combat. It was a statistical fact that alcoholics almost never recovered on their own resources, and this had been true apparently ever since men had first crushed grapes. I'm going to pass there.
Good morning, everybody. Katrina, alcoholic.
Hi, Katrina.
In AA's pioneering time, none but the most desperate cases could swallow and digest this unpalatable truth. Even these last gaspers often had difficulty in realizing how hopeless they actually were, but a few did. And when these laid hold of AA's principles with all the fervor with which the drowning seas life preservers, they almost invariably got well. That is why the first edition of the book, Alcoholic Anonymous, published when our membership was small, dealt with low bottom cases only. Many less desperate alcoholics tried AA but did not succeed because they could not make the admission of hopelessness. It is a tremendous satisfaction to record that in the following years this changed. Alcoholics who still had their health, their family, their jobs, and even 2 cars in the garage began to recognize their alcoholism. As the trend grew, they had joined by young people who were scarcely more than potential alcoholics. They were spared that last 10 or 15 years of literal hell the rest of us had gone through. Since that one requires an admission that our lives have become unmanageable, how could people such as these take this step? It was obviously necessary to raise the bottom the rest of us had hit to the point where it would hit them. By going back in our own drinking histories, we could show that years before we realized it when we were out of control, that our drinking even then was no mere habit, that it was indeed the beginning of a fatal progression. To the doubters, we could say, perhaps you're not an alcoholic after all. Why don't you try some more controlled drinking? Bearing in mind, meanwhile, that we have told you about alcoholism. This attitude brought immediate and practical results. It was then discovered that when one alcoholic had planted in the mind of another the true nature of his malady, that person could never be the same again. Following every spree, he would say to himself, maybe those AAs were right. After a few such experiences, often years before the onset of extreme difficulties, he would return to us, convinced he had hit bottom. As truly as any of us, John Barleycorn himself had become our best advocate. With all the insistence that every AA must hit bottom first, the answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice the AA program unless they have hit bottom. For practicing AA's remaining 11 steps means the adoption of attitudes and actions that almost no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? Who wants to confess his faults to another and make restitution for harm done? Who cares anything about a higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who wants to sacrifice time and energy on trying to carry AA's message to the next sufferer? No, the average alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive themselves. Under the lash of alcoholism, we are driven to AA and there we discover the fatal nature of our situation. Then and only then do we become as open-minded to conviction and as willing to listen as the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything which will lift the merciless obsession from us.
Wow. Short but sweet, I would say. I really got a lot out of that reading. I know I've read it so many times before. And I was so glad that they said about the bottom hitting us. Like the low bottom drunks were the ones that AA first targeted. But then there were still people, like I still had 2 cars in the garage, like they said, and I still had a house. But I was, I've been trying to control this drinking for 35 years, literally. So, and obviously, I could have gone further, but I didn't. And I think that was my higher power saying, hey, man, you got to do something now. And that's what I did. I did something now. And so what I read, when I read this morning, my daughter Juliet popped into my head. And she's been telling me that she goes to this bar in Point, and she threw up again, last night, or blah blah blah. I did this. I'm like, that's like the 3rd time in a row she's told me. And how many times has she been there since that? And thinking, okay, so it's just a little dinging, little bells are dinging in my head. And then she said, I said, well, how'd you get home? And she looks at me, and I'm like, I get it. So, fuck. How many times did I drink? Excuse my language. How many times did I drink and drive? I can't even count. So, I said to her on the side, hey, man, I get it. I said, I drank and drove all the time, honey. I said to her, and I said, the weirdest thing was, every time I went to go somewhere I knew I was going to drink, I said I wouldn't do that. And as soon as I took that first drink, all my inhibitions, all that went out the window. And when I wanted to leave, I didn't want to wait for to call we didn't have Ubers. I didn't want to call and say, oh, honey, can you pick me up? Or hey, man, I'm going to sleep here. I never said that. I just said, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go home now because that's what I want. I want. So I told her that. I said, so just remember that. So this thing is so nice and short and sweet. I think I want to ruin my daughter's drinking. So I want her to read this, step 1. Maybe it'll ruin her drinking for her. And she's 21. So if she can read this and just read it, because she's spiritual too. So she does have some of these, she has an open mind. I don't know. I know at 21 I wouldn't have done it, but she does have an open mind. So maybe just reading this to her will open the door, and maybe she'll shut it and do some more investigating, and we'll see what happens. You don't need to raise your hand to share in this meeting. You just need to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and go along with it. So I'm interested to hear what other people have to say this morning.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Good morning, family. I'm Ronnie, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Hey, Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie.
Thank God and the members of AA for my sobriety today. Welcome to the newcomers and those coming back. And I thank those of you that were here before me for keeping these doors open for me, because God is truly good. And he continues to work miracles in my life, and that's done a day at a time. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, David. Thank you to all the readers, everyone doing service. Who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. That's what it says. And I'm one of the no ones. And I was going to get this thing right. or it was going to kill me. And that's what almost literally happened to me. I never saw it coming until bam. The rapacious creditor. I had never heard that word until I was blessed to make it to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then we began to read and look at rapacious, because now it was time to pay back. It was payback time. And what happened once I began to start to do the work, I remember when the rapacious creditor paid us a personal visit. That's when my dad died from this disease. I didn't even understand what was going on then because I was only 16. And all it did was make me angry and fuel my alcoholism. I took off from the age of 16. That's what happened. We got things, we traveled, we did things, and my dad did his, I guess that was one of his great, or not the most greatest accomplishment. He brought his daughter and his wife a home. And then he died 2 days after we moved into our house, never spending a night in his own house. And once I got sober, I saw what that was. That was the disease of alcoholism. I will give you things. I will let you get things. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to take them away from you. And then that takes me and makes me think of chapter 3 in the big book and more about alcoholism. The persistence of disillusion is astonishing. And many pursue it into the gates of insanity and death. And that's what happened. I give it to you and I take it away. And it talks about low bottom, and like Rebecca, I had, when I was getting sober, I had a house, I had a career, I have a car because I don't drive anymore. But I had all these things, and I was sick. I'd had a stroke when I was out there, and I didn't know I had a stroke. And I felt death breathing down my neck. And I thought I was living a good life. I really thought I had and I was blessed. Yes, I was blessed by God to have a good life. But it wasn't a good life for me because inside my spirit was dying. I was dying on the inside. And then it asks these questions, like when I take people through the work and even with the big book, I do refer to those questions at the end of step 1, And then it says, and under the lash of alcoholism, that's when I got that. That was my last bottom, when I got caught in the trapdoor. That was the worst beating I ever had in my entire life. The lash of alcoholism. And then it's only the dying could be, because I felt death. I felt it coming for me. And then by grace and mercy, the program, the fellowship, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and you people, I was relieved of that merciless obsession. Because it was going to kill me. And this is a disease, it's very patient, it's very tolerant. I didn't pick up a drink and then it said, bam, you dead. You're going to be dragged through hell. The joyride to hell, and thank God, because I surrendered, you people told me I had to surrender to win. I had to admit I was powerless over alcohol and that my life was unmanageable. And once I did that, I was on my way. The journey begins, and now it's time to do the work. It says admission of powerlessness is the first step in liberation. That's when I found out what the answer was to my problem. Surrender and join you people and do the work so I could learn how to inhale serenity and exhale peace. And for that, I'll always be eternally grateful. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I looked at the word rapacious, and rapacious means aggressively greedy or grasping. Rapacious landlords, inordinately greedy or predatory, extortionate, rapacious deposition. So it's different from greed. There is a difference. Rapacious is just like ferocious, ravenous. Go ahead, Belinda. I'm so sorry.
You just took my thought because I had it on my phone. Yes, rapacious, without our permission, but let me keep it on myself. Without my permission, like he just came in and said, I don't care, you doing this and you doing that, and I don't care how you feel, and I don't care what you gotta do to get it, you gonna get this. That's what happened. You know, I always say, people say free, because when I first started, oh my God, I could go to the bar looking good and didn't have to spend a dime, you know. But once that rapacious person showed up in spirit, honey, it wasn't like that. I had to hustle for my drink. You know, I had to do things that I would be with people that I would never had been with, you know, just to get a drink. You know, when people called me, they knew the drill. I said, you know what to do. Don't be visiting empty can to bring that fifth. You know, bring it. I always had liquor in the freezer. You know, some I stole from the bar when I was a barmaid, you know. Rapacious. You know, every time I do a step one, it just takes me back to where I came from, you know, and it's like a freedom now, you know. I'm free from that. I'm free to make choices. I'm free to say no. Something that I could never say when I was in the crux of my addiction. If they showed me a pint, honey, I would go. Okay. I didn't care what size the bottle was. I didn't care what they was, but it had to be vodka, and not no cheap vodka either. But you know, at least I had enough sense to say that, you know. But my God, when they talked, and it's so funny that me and you were on the same energy, Rebecca, because that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna bust him out for people who don't know who he is. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thanks, Berlinda. Yeah, same page, girl. Rapacious. Like, what's the real meaning of rapacious? And yeah, it's pretty. The definition doesn't even do it justice. You know.
Good morning, everybody. Katrina, alcoholic.
Hey, Katrina.
Hey.
Katrina.
That word rapacious, it sounds scary, you know. I had the meaning kind of out in the outlines in my book that it was aggressively and greedy. But when I first went into recovery, I have 2 dates. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable. I stayed in recovery for 28 days. Came out, felt good, ready to start this thing, read the big book from front to back, couldn't tell me nothing. But in my book, when I went back into recovery, I have this underlining. To the doubters, we could say, perhaps you're not an alcoholic after all. Why don't you try some more controlled drinking? Bearing in mind, meanwhile, what we have told you about alcoholism. I have that underlined because I thought that I pretty much had the AA thing done. I read the book, I had made the mission, but it was one thing I did not do. I was ignorant. I was ignorant to the fact that I could not have one. I started drinking one weekend after I was in recovery and sober for 6 months. I went and had a party at my house. I was so proud of myself. Everybody else drinking. I got this thing. I could have fun and I don't have to drink until I did. I said, what I'll do is have me a couple drinks. I'll go back and AA, start my program again on Monday. I was out for like 6 months, 6 more months, and almost killed myself. That's when I learned that I could not have one. I was no longer ignorant to the fact that I could not have one and that this is a disease. This is nothing to play with. I realized that, and I haven't had a drink since. I can really say now that I am powerless. I'm powerless. And now that my life is manageable, I'm doing the 12 steps. This is a program that you have to do daily. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, hopefully, God's will. And I respect it. I respect alcoholism. It's a disease. It really is. Thank you for that, Michelle.
Thanks, Katrina. Yeah, I was always afraid. Once I went in, I didn't know I could never drink again when I came to AA. I just didn't know. I just came in with a blank slate, and I was like, "What do you mean I can't have those pot brownies in my freezer?" I didn't know. I wasn't allowed to do anything. I didn't know, you know. And these guys are laughing at me. You can't have that. You're sober. I'm like, oh. And it took me like 2 beats, and I said, okay, and I meant it. It was like, okay, and that was that. And that was when I know right where I was. And I said, okay. And I was okay with it. It was like crazy. But I'm so glad I'm sober today. And I'm afraid if for some reason that cunning, baffling, and powerful thing that'll be waiting, that is always waiting in the background because I'm an alcoholic, I'm afraid that if I ever let my guard down, that I might not ever make it back. Not because I'd be ashamed. I think more because I would be that rapacious creditor. I would devour it and I wouldn't be able to make it back. So I just keep that in the forefront of my mind, saying, "Oh, watch out, watch out." So I'll stop talking. I'm sorry.
Hi, this is Catherine. I'm an alcoholic. I hope I never forget how every day of my life got to the point where it was worrying about whether I had enough wine to drink. And, the desperation and the planning that, where am I going to buy it today? And, I've heard other people tell the stories. I had different places I'd go, because I didn't want to, be noticed too much. And, the hiding it, disposing of it, everything. And traveling was really hard because, like, when I'm with other people, how do I get my supply? And then spending like hours and hours of the day, not functioning, not being able to do anything. And it's just, and yet I still question, was I an alcoholic? And I think I'd given up hope, but I was very, very blessed that nothing horrible that very well could have happened had happened to me. But the process, I mean, I'm now 17 months in to sobriety, and do I ever miss drinking? Yeah, sometimes, mostly when I'm around other people drinking. But you all and the meetings and the literature, the whole structure of this program has really taught me how low I was, how out of control I was, and that I couldn't do this on my own. And without AA, there's nothing that could have helped me. So, anytime I hear anything, the stuff in the books about trying to get through to people and trying to bring them into the rooms, I relate to how difficult that was for me to come to terms and the acceptance part. Because I've also heard people that are exactly like me who you still keep wondering, can I have one drink and all that sort of stuff. But I need to constantly be reminded how completely out of control I was. And I really do understand and believe that it's only for the grace of God, for you all, for the program, that I've come this far, and I hope to continue.
I'm going through a really rough time right now. My husband and I are just super having problems. He hates my sobriety almost. He's just on my back all the time. You know, I can't. He told me this. We were away. We were out of town, and just some little thing will trigger him, and he's like, "Oh, I predict in a year we're going to be divorced." So we are going to go into counseling, but this isn't. I didn't expect this because I feel like I'm functioning so much better. I take care of everything at home. You know, when it snows here, I'm the one who goes out and shovels. It's just when we had a mouse infestation, I'm the one who has to clean up all the mouse shit all over the house. And now he's calling me selfish. I don't know if he just really resents my working on this stuff, my working on myself. I don't feel as lonely as I used to. You know, the fact that I have a community now, and I feel more self-contained. I used to be so lonely, and he didn't want to hear anything about my spiritual stuff, or there's so many topics that were always off the table for us. But now I don't need to talk to him about it anymore. And but it's really weird having to deal with resentment from someone else about my own recovery. And but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. I don't even care. You know, if that's his choice, if we have to split up, whatever. We've been together 32 years. You know, I'd never ever get married again. You know, I think a lot of women. I'm 67, going to be 68. It's like, okay, did that, been there. I'm so through with men. But so it'll be interesting. I'm scared though. I mean, I'm afraid, and I do not like being attacked. You know, I mean, rather than be attacked in the past, I used to just go drink and never say anything, you know, and just be Miss Little Dutiful while I was killing myself. But I appreciate your support. I just, I don't know what else I would do. So I don't know. I'm just rambling, but it's been just really rough lately. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Joy. I'm an alcoholic. Hey guys. Good morning, good morning. Happy
Hey, girl.
Tuesday. So, Tuesday, yay. Whatever the heck that means. But I remember going into my first meetings in that first week, and the chairperson, when I went to the beginners meeting, the chairperson saying, "Do you believe you're an alcoholic?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Trust me, I know." "Well, do you think you're powerless over it?" I'm like, "Yeah, alcohol's kicked my butt. Yeah, yes, I'm powerless and I'm an alcoholic." Like, this is, like, that was not even debatable for me, because by the time I got in, I had a job offer that was starting in 2 weeks, and I knew it was my last chance. I just knew it. Because the job I had prior to that, I got fired from. If that kind of happens when you don't show up a lot, you know, or if you show up hungover, they kind of tend to not like that. I learned that. But I knew. And then the rapacious creditor, when I think of the rapacious, I think of a raptor, which is a dinosaur, you know. That's what the rapacious creditor is. It's like just rip you apart, just rip you to shreds. And in fact, I think that's probably where the root of the word comes from. And yeah, like bleeding me dry, right? Just bleeding me dry. And then somebody was talking about all the work that went into, it was a lot of work. It was a full-time job keeping up with my alcoholic disease and thinking about where I was going to go next for the next, thing. And as it so happens, I knew a man who worked in the liquor stores, and my husband knows him too. And you can't miss him. He wears like this, one of those nose guards when he's at work. And he's got like hairs coming out of his nose, hairs coming out of his ears. Yeah. And it was funny when my husband and I met and we started talking about, I'm like, oh, I know Elliot. I'm like, yeah, Elliot. And I go way back. But this guy worked at the liquor stores, and I kind of knew where he was, and I didn't want him to see me come in, twice or three times a week to buy my booze. He might think I was an alcoholic. So I would, dart around here and there. But in the end, it was the vodka that took me down, man. That vodka, just straight up, and then it would burn going down. So I would take like a Prilosec, in advance to try to protect my esophagus from all the burning. This is why people with late alcoholic disease get what's called esophageal varices. It's really just like blood vessels in the esophagus, and they pop. And people can like drown in their own blood is what happens. That's how my brother died, sadly. But yeah, I didn't know any of that. And I did know that I was powerless over it, and I knew that I was an alcoholic, and I was willing to accept however Alcoholics Anonymous defined the word alcoholic. It didn't matter to me. I just knew that I was one of them, whatever that was. So yeah, I was. There was a great sense of relief that came over me when I finally was able to say that, admit it, and admit that I was powerless over that substance. It had me. It had me. I was its bitch. That's the way it was. So yeah, it's good reading this morning. It's always good to remember step one, good old step one, right? All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks, Joy.
Thanks, Joy.
I'll share. I'm David. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Morning, Dave.
Good morning. It seems so easy, this step, but for me, it has been a very, very challenging journey. And thank you for defining rapacious predator. I hear it all the time. Whenever I hear that saying, I think of Jurassic Park because it sounds like a dinosaur. I don't know why. Just my Philadelphia brain. And anyway, but today I truly am powerless, and I used to think admitting complete defeat made me weak. Like why is it that others people can drink and use successfully, but I can't? And how come I have to admit complete defeat, but this person over here can enjoy themselves? And that's how I looked at it. But every time I picked up, there was no enjoyment about it. Like even after having years of sobriety and picking back up again, there wasn't like a brief moment where I was like, wow, I really miss this. Like the minute it hit my lips or was injected into my arm, it was absolute remorse and regret immediately. And all the things that I love so much that AA gives me, which is this life, a life to be able to get things done, to be a good father to my child, to give somebody my word and keep it. Like all of these things that we take for granted once we're sober a while, like I lose immediately as soon as I pick up. Like that all goes away. There is nothing about it. So why wouldn't I want to admit complete defeat? And then even worse, why is it that once in a blue moon, like I'll start romancing the idea of it? Like knowing the horrible, awful things that happen to me immediately following picking up. And I guess that's where this word insidious comes in, and baffling, words we use often in AA. I don't want to ever be there again. You know, so we say that this is a program, you know, that we stay sober a day at a time. And, you know, this isn't my first time around, but I am working so diligently to make it my last time around, you know, and that required me, you know, to stop taking my own advice. Like, I actually believe that I know what's good for me. And I learn through others teaching me of what's good for me because I ask them, which requires humility, you know, and it requires admitting complete defeat. Like sometimes I think I know what I'm doing, but I don't. And the question is so elementary that it's hard for me to call another member in the program on the phone and admit complete defeat, not in the area of drugs and alcohol, but just in something basic and elementary, something most adults would normally know how to do that's just too embarrassing. But they say that the dumbest question is the one not asked. But in my case, the dumbest question could take me out there and kill me. So it's like it requires me saying, hey, listen, how do I do this? Or do you think I'm making a right decision? Or how do I handle this? And then I learn. You know, now I don't have to admit complete defeat anymore because I'm not doing it my way. You know, and only people in Alcoholics Anonymous understand what I'm saying. You know, and I don't mean to crosstalk. Well, actually, I mean to crosstalk because I just said I don't mean to, but I'm going to anyway. But, you know, Catherine's been in our group now for, I don't know, a year. And it's like, you know, I just want you to know I completely support you. You know, when I got sober, when I changed my life, there are people in my life that don't like me like this. Like there are people in my life that prefer me the other way. You know, where they can treat me like Gumby and bend me in any direction because I'm so insecure and so inferior and so submissive and so flexible, you know, to other people's will. You know, they don't like me as a strong, confident, you know, good decision maker. And that's very intimidating to people that kind of we fell into a relationship with, you know, as that other individual, you know, and when we start loving ourselves, that's a real threat to somebody else that only knows us the one way. So I would inspire you to keep on keeping on, you know what I mean? And do the next right thing. And I've been single for 21 years. Believe me, I know what it's like to be done with relationships. You know, I admitted complete defeat, definitely in that area. Or as people in AA like to say, I have a bad picker. So, but I'm just so grateful I'm sober today. Like, I used to have to force myself to come to meetings, but today I want to come to meetings. I used to have to force myself to be around people that I didn't want to be around. Today I look forward to seeing those people. And not only that, I know their names. Some of them I even call them on the phone. Some of them I even tell them I love them. So I just have to do this today. And I'm looking forward to today. And I'm staying out of tomorrow, man. So anyway, it's great to be on here this morning, Rebecca. Thanks for becoming your commitment. And that's all that I got. Thanks.
I love being here. I love this meeting, and I love to see the growth in people. And there is a chapter, the family after, in the big book, right? You know, and I'm like, oh my God, my experience. I know I'm changing the subject, but my experience with the family afterwards was not like that. It came 2 years after, you know, and it smacked me in the face. 2.5 years later, I was like, holy cow, you know, and my marriage was in trouble, everything was in trouble, and I was like, what the fuck happened? But you know what, excuse my language, but you know what,
I got through it, and I'm here today, and I'm so thankful that I have a supportive husband, and who is also he's struggled with addiction in the past, and now he's got cancer. So, but I had a sister who was married, and she decided to. She's a yo-yo, you know, like I was, going drinking, not drinking, drinking, not drinking. But he was like, he told her flat out, "I like you better when you're drinking," because he could manipulate her. He could, you know, and they divorced. But I pray for her all the time because she is the yo-yo. And you know what? Us alcoholics have a lot of us have the ability to make a lot of money. And you know what? Money didn't bring me here. I thought that if I just had this, I'd be happy. If I just had that, and she's still there. You know what? If I just have this, my sobriety has brought me such serenity. I can breathe. My serenity has brought my sobriety, and my surrender has given me pause to think, and and has eliminated chaos. Oh, so much chaos. I used to go in my brain. My brain used to think for me all the time. Oh, maybe I should have said this, da, 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 you know, and I'm going over conversations in my head that I'm going to have or that I had. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just insane. I don't do that anymore. And I'm so thankful because I can pause and say, you know what? Oh, stop. I don't need to do this. So I could actually tell myself to stop, and I actually stopped. And I give it all up to God and said, hey, take this and give me what I need today. That's all I need to know. What I need to do for just these 24 hours is put it on my plate. And it usually happens pretty well. So I'll shut up. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet now so other people can cheer.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Well, I know in a lot of other meetings, like in my last meeting before I came here, they're like, you're not supposed to talk in between. You're just supposed to let people share. You're supposed to be really quiet, and silence is fine. And I was like, all these rules and all these things, and like when things popped into my head, I wasn't allowed to say them. And I was just like, this is so rigid. And this meeting gives me thought, and I love it. I love this meeting because it gives me so much to think about, and it pumps my day up.
Chief, come on. Chief, come on.